in the garden.
Hey everyone, and welcome to Geeks in the Garden.
Hello, welcome to our November episode. We're just going to have a little chat here at the beginning, Karen. We're at the end of our year, sort of, the end of our gardening. We're kind of putting our gardens to bed. We still have some things growing, but we thought we'd just kind of talk about what's going on in our garden. So, what is going on in your garden? I haven't been over in a while.
Well, surprisingly, roses. I never knew roses to grow so late in November, but I have some gorgeous roses that are just hanging in there, just being gorgeous for no reason, despite the fact that we've had a few freezing nights. But the roses are still there looking absolutely amazing. So I'm just grateful for that. And who knows why? I'll take it where I can get it.
Is that do you think that weird weather we were having in September had anything to do with extend, or are these new roses, or are they ones you had winter?
One is new. One is my all dressed up grandiflora rose that I planted this year. And one is my Frida Kahlo rose, which has been around for a while now. So I don't know what kind of witchcraft made that happen, but I am grateful for it. Also, we still have some cosmos here in our neighborhood that are going strong. That is pretty amazing to see that beautiful, like fluorescent pink, happy flower here as we near Thanksgiving. But the cosmos are hanging in there. So go figure.
Yeah, for me, it's like the asters have hung in there, but my chrysanthemums didn't last that long this year. Might have something to do with like I let their pots dry out, but and also I guess I just have I have a couple roses that are still going. Not as gangbusters as yours, but mostly it's I'm going around and I'm doing a Karen. I'm collecting seeds this year. I have a whole bunch of things that I'm just kind of opening a bag and shaking them in there. So that's kind of what I've been doing. I haven't really started doing any of the cutting back yet. We both kind of let our gardens go wild to help the birds. But I am trying to work through that giant mulch pile that I got, and trying to just get some new beds ready, and also just kind of dress some of the other beds that need a little more. We were using the lasagna method. You did some sections of your garden, and I did as well. But there's definitely some gaps where some of the grass came through. So I'm just trying to spend a little time cleaning up. It was so gorgeous yesterday. I just felt like I should be planting things and not, taking things down and cutting back.
That's
but
weird.
Yeah. So one of the things I thought we'd talk about is earlier in the year, we did an episode about garden journaling and how we were both kind of use it to guide and document our gardens throughout this year. And I wondered how you kept up on yours.
Well, fairly well, more or less. I've got two different journals I've really got going. One is just a journal where I sort of say what I planted and when, and maybe when it flowered, things like that. And that's useful because you can look back and say, how old is this thing really? And then I've got my
what is this that I planted?
Or what is it I planted? Yes, even
you
more
plant so much. I don't know how you could absolutely
super duper forgetful. I know. Try not to plant things on top of bulbs that are already there or something. But yeah, I also have my herbarium, my Emily Dickinson style herbarium, where I've been taking flowers as they bloom and then drying them in the microwave with a press, and then taping them into my herbarium. And I got away from it a little bit, as time went on in the summer, but I have most of the year done, which it's very helpful for me because I'm so in the moment. And, especially as I look out and I see the flowers start to fade, it gets very depressing. And I'm like, oh, it'll never come again. But I can look at the herbarium and be like, all right, look, here was the flower that was just a few months ago. Hang on tight. Don't lose hope. It'll be okay. It's coming back. So it's been a therapeutic sort of thing for me.
I love that. I need to see. Maybe you can take a picture of that and put it on the socials.
I will, yes.
Pages. Yeah, because I remember I think your very first page I got to see when you were putting that together. So I'd love to see the progress. I kind of I had the intent to draw more in mine, do more illustrations, kind of journal, but really it just became lists of what I planted, lists of ideas for next year's garden. And I did doodle a little, like moving things around, because as in the middle of the year when we were talking about in one of the other podcasts, this is the first year I really had a deer problem. So I already know that I want to move some plants to our kind of backyard where there's a fence around it. Not to say the deer can't jump over the fence, but they really seem to enjoy like where they're my front yard where I put some new beds in. And I'm just not willing to battle them. I will put plants out that they like, and those will be my sacrificial plants. And then hopefully everybody else they'll leave alone, and they'll just have the hostas. But for me, like I did like that how much time I put into documenting in the spring has really helped me remember, because some things didn't come up like big, but they'll come back the next year, or some of the bulbs I planted will come back next year, bigger and better. So kind of, I don't know, it helped me with my ADHD kind of stay a little more on top of what is going on and what my plan is for this, or what the final vision will be. So, because I want to, have more cut flowers in an area. So yeah, I mean, basically it really helped. And so if you haven't started a garden journal, I guess Karen and I both would say thumbs up, do it however works best for you. And have at it. I think you will benefit from it at the end of the year, kind of planning your next year's garden. So
yeah, it's good for lessons learned and things like that. I learned that my apple tree gets rust if I don't put on a fungicide right as the buds start opening up. And that's easy to forget. So I can put on my page for the apple tree a little asterisk of apply fungicide at this certain kind of time. And then
and that's a great idea, that it then gives you like an actual timeline of things that you need to do in your garden and when and why.
Right.
So,
yeah.
I'll have to look to see if there's any of that I can kind of extrapolate this time would be the best to do this for that. Yeah. I love it.
Yeah. And can you imagine if we like hand these things down to our children who are still living in these houses maybe, and they can be like, oh, that tree was planted 50 years ago. Oh, what an awesome.
I love looking. My dad had actual spreadsheets, which was why I laughed that one of the ways I was tracking all of my seed purchases and like where they were, I was using spreadsheets. So I was like, I never thought I'd use spreadsheets. I'm not that kind of visual, cataloger, like lists and like handwriting, but for some reason, like I really like having it all there on a spreadsheet was really helping me, especially when it came to when they would bloom and when I needed to pinch them back, and when I would get second bloom from them. Didn't quite catch some of them, so I didn't get that second bloom, but it'll help me next year know again, like a timeline that I need to go do things. So yeah.
So it's exciting. I'm gonna really get out there soon, I think, and apply some mulch, apply some, leaf grow soil conditioner. And we already dug up our bulbs, right? I've got my huge elephant ear bulbs dug up and washed and dried and ready to go, and hopefully are sleeping soundly to wake up next year. So yep. Next I might do the dahlias, because I think they need to come up too, for sure.
Yeah. I was just talking through with a coworker. I was explaining how to store bulbs. So yeah, onward and upward.
That's right. Plus you have a super cool, weird Christmas decoration of just these bulbous, weird, dirty things just hanging out in the corner. So that's always fun.
Don't mind me. Those are just my dead plants that will emerge again.
Hibernating plants, right?
Well, our next feature, our next section is our making and baking section. We actually this came about with, I was cleaning up my herb garden, and I was the thing that's going gangbusters still in my garden, and most people that live in the mid-Atlantic, is my rosemary. Um, my rosemary bush is something that's green and very happy, and it greets me when I get out of my car and walk up my back steps. I get that lovely aromatic smell, and then I get to see its long sweeping branches waving in the autumn breeze. And last night I just grabbed a big handful of it to use in a soup I was making, and that's when it occurred to me that I should talk about these wreaths that I've made over the years that I use kind of in holiday tablescapes. I'm not a fancy schmancy person. Using the word tablescape is kind of like ridiculous for me, but it's just something easy to make. I've used those little grapevine wreath blanks that you get for like $1 or $2 at the craft stores, or you can take some thicker floral wire and just create like a loop with it. And you just take your rosemary sprigs, and you can have, if you have a big bush like me, you can do 12 inches, or you can create little sprigs of them with what is that, floral tape at the end of them, and just kind of work them around and just go around and lay them down, overlapping each other, and use some thin floral wire and just kind of overlap it. And you just get this gorgeous green, really yummy smelling wreath that you can put in the middle of your table. And like throw some pine cones in there and put a candle. And the nice thing about it is when you are like sitting at the table, you can kind of scrunch the stems, and that kind of releases that fragrance. And it's perfect for a Thanksgiving table or a Christmas table. So that's just a little quick making and baking, something you can do real quick before Thanksgiving or Christmas.
That sounds lovely. It really makes me wish that I hadn't forgotten about that pot of rosemary I got and let it just slowly, horribly die of drought while
I have so much. I will give you some of my rosemary.
Oh, that would be lovely.
I'll make a note in my garden journal that Karen needs some of my rosemary.
There you go. I will note not to forget that the rosemary is there and torture it to death. So our plant feature today is the wonderful, lovely, and humble serviceberry tree. This time of year, like we were talking about, we have these last lingering bursts of color, the glorious trees, the last petals on the fall anemone. I have those 2 rose bushes that are still going to town even in the latter half of November. However, we know that winter's grays and browns are coming, and even all the artificial decorations for Christmas are not enough to stop me from missing nature's colors with an achy intensity. It is so awful to just not see any of that when you look outside. Fortunately, we do have a few options when it comes to seeing that pop of color through the doldrum months, particularly December through February. And berries are one wonderful thing that you can look forward to for a nice splash of color. This year, I intentionally planted a few different crabapple trees and holly trees to get the green leaves of the holly plus the dark red and the light yellow of the crab apples. And one tree I'm excited about in particular is the serviceberry tree, which I actually got for free from our local electrical utility service. They give out
I got one too.
There we go. Awesome. How's yours doing?
Probably not as good as yours. I don't think it's real happy where I put it because it's like, I think our pine tree makes that soil too acidic. So if I can, I will move it because
you probably could do that now that the leaves are maybe starting to drop off. But
yeah,
the serviceberry is a common understory tree in the Southeast and up through zone 7 where we are. It's also called a shad bush, but neither name really does service to its 4 seasons of interest, from its pretty little white spring flowers to leaves that go from green to red orange to the berries it produces in winter. It's a great way to lure birds into your yard. As we were saying, we definitely want to try and help those as much as we can. Though I will admit, the more birds you have, the fewer berries you have, but so be it. That's all right. We can actually eat the berries too, or make them into jams and things. Apparently that's good, but I've never tasted it. Mine is still very small and not berry producing. So yeah, I'm not sure why it didn't grow so much this year, but hopefully it was establishing and next year it'll just take off. So particularly of interest to me and to anyone looking to spruce up space near a road, the serviceberry can tolerate salty conditions. And I live on a major road. The county salts it like crazy during the winter when there's any hint of snow. So that makes for a real tough environment for the plants that sit nearby. The serviceberry can apparently take the runoff, however. So I'm looking forward to her grow, albeit slowly, as she's toughing it out in the salt conditions.
That's right. Yeah, because that is one of the hardest parts about living off a road is that you do get that. You also get the different, you have to have hardy plants that can take exhaust and take different, the soil runoff, all the good nutrients being runoff. So yeah, good. Well, I hope mine does well as well. Our twin service berries. So
we'll have to compare notes. Yeah.
Yeah. I'll write that in my garden journal.
There you go. Perfect.
Our next feature is our plant news section. So right now, what is happening is that annual amazing trip where the monarch butterflies have started their journey to the groves where they'll spend the winter. The monarchs west of the Rocky Mountains have that long trip to the California coast before them, while the eastern monarchs have a hefty 3,000-mile trek to the forests of Mexico. And as we all know, the monarchs have suffered severe population losses. In this past several decades, the eastern population has declined 80%. While its western counterpart has fared even more poorly. And these numbers reflect a very real threat of extinction for these iconic species. This week, President Biden signed the $1 trillion bipartisan Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act, which includes funding for roads and bridges, broadband, the electric grid, and more. And that more includes funding for pollinators. This act authorizes the U.S. Department of Transportation to make $2 million in grants each year over the next 5 years for states, Native American tribes, and federal agencies to carry out activities that benefit pollinators and monarch butterflies along roads and highways they oversee. This includes planting native flowers, adopting pollinator-friendly land management policies, and removing non-native vegetation. And that's really important because along the eastern shore, we are just like kudzu and all of the vines are just really choking out a lot of trees and native plants. So the language in the Infrastructure Act was originally introduced as the Monarch and Pollinator Highway Act of 2021 by Senator Jeff Merkley of Oregon and Representatives Jen Panetta and Salud Carbajal of California. So the strategies as outlined offer a boon to pollinators and other wildlife in these healing ecosystems, and they need the help. The American pollinators face an imperiled future to the decades of exposure to toxic pesticides, disappearing habitat, and a changing climate. In addition to monarchs, one report found that more than half of native bee species in North America are in decline. We need infrastructure that prioritizes these creatures. And Karen, the good news is about an hour or so ago, right before we taped, the bill has passed in the House and hopefully it will go through in the Senate. It's kind of a little bit of theatrics going on right now, but we can hope that it will then pass.
That'll be a harder sell for sure, but hopefully, fingers crossed.
So thank you for joining us today. This is a shorter, end of the year episode we're doing. And we thought we'd spend a moment going into the Thanksgiving weekend for us in the States to give thanks to our gardens.
Yes, indeed. I am very thankful to my garden for all of the, the therapy it has given me, mostly for just being there, for being infinitely interesting. That's what I just love about nature. My daughter, we were walking home from school the other day, and I was staring at a tree for way longer than she wanted to. As she was pulling me away, she was like, "Why are you so interested in this?" in frustration, because she just wanted to get home. And I think she had to use the bathroom too. So it was a totally valid question. But she asked me, why is it interesting? And the fact is, like, when the world is chaotic, like, you can just always find something interesting. You can always look in your garden, and if you stare long enough, you will find something cool, some new leaf growth, some new, evidence of an animal or something. I'm thankful that it's interesting and that cool things are always growing and happening. I'm thankful for all the plants that I hope will get me through this winter. I got ornamental kale for the first time.
Fun.
I know, because I was like, I need a plant that's going to see me through. And they had some at the local nursery, and I was like, ooh, all right, this will be good. I'm thankful for my camellia bush that's got a bud on it. I might actually get a Christmas bloom out of my Yuletide camellia this year. Fingers crossed. Thankful for all the trees that have already made their buds, so I can go around and I can see all the cool buds, like the little pussy willow ones. They're all different colors. They're all different shapes and sizes, and they've already made those leaves for next year, which gives me a huge amount of hope, because the trees are planning for next year. They're hopeful that there'll be sunshine and all to soak in. So I'm happy that I too can take a page from the trees and all, and figure I too will prepare for what will hopefully be a good, bright next year. Hopefully.
That's right. And much like you, I'm thankful for like the refuge that my garden has given me during this, this crazy 21 months of, COVID, lockdown, pandemic, anxiety, stress, chaos. It's just a place where you can go and breathe and feel connected. And even though my list of things to do in my garden is always a mile long, it doesn't feel as stressful as my list of things to do around the house or things to do for work. It's like there's this, payoff to all of the effort and energy we put into our gardening that just gives back in bountifuls. Like, just as someone who has a chronic pain disease, where there are days where I just, after a day of work, I just want to go collapse in my chair. But the pool of the garden and being out there in my little sanctuary, my little private space, it can make me push through pain in a way that other tasks don't, because of that payoff, because you get that catharsis, that mental joy. It just helps. It helps so much. So I'm very thankful that I have this place to go and this place to be, and this ever evolving place that it's a place where I can put my personality and my I don't know, my energy and my joy. And if I'm having a bad day, you can dig and rip up weeds. And so it just provides a lot emotionally, mentally, and it's just always a source of happiness for me. So
indeed, well said. So please come find us on Instagram at Geeks in the Garden, and subscribe on all the podcast streamers like Spotify, Apple Podcasts, etc. And feel free to leave a review that will help others find us.
That's right. And if you join us on our next episode, we'll be talking about what we all do in the wintertime. We're planning that next spring garden, what we'll be adding, what we're going to change, and what we're most excited to try. I know that Karen's going to be adding a lot. She's always adding a lot.
Always. I've got a shipment coming in from Arbor Day Foundation anytime now. I cannot wait.
So thanks again for spending this time with us.
Yes, we are thankful for you, our listeners, who take the time out of all the media metaverse to tune into our little podcast.